Hello and welcome back to my analysis of the 2019-2020 season's Battle of the Hockey Pool guides. Let's get right to it. In a previous video, I posed two questions. We were trying to determine which guide was the best of the bunch and which guide was the closest to being perfect. Most people think the two are the same, but we know that they are not. Through our Battle of the Hockey Pool guides, our winner was Hockey Center Ice. Now we're trying to see if it matched up with our missed opportunity ratings. Here is the first half of our missed opportunity scores in ascending order, which evaluates the over 800 players that played in the 2019-20 season. The guides shaded in blue are our 8 finalists. As you see, only 5 are on the first half, but it looks promising that there are 3 at the top of the list. Here is the second half of the scores. While there seems to be some promise, there is also some doubt. The difficulty is in particular with ESPN. They came in third place, and yet they have the worst missed opportunity rating of the 8 guides, and by a lot. However, the ratings are based on the 17,224 points from all 883 players, and the final battle only went 46 rounds, which is 368 players. We will readjust the scoring for the top 350 players, which earned 13,624 points. That equates to 79% of the total amount of points scored that season. Here we see the 8 finalists ordered by the total number of victories from the 3 battles they participated in, the percentage of simulations that they won, and their missed opportunity rating for just the top 350 players. ESPN continues to be an outlier, and we find a second one with the Ultimate Pool preview entries. Looking at only the final battle results, Hockey Center Ice convincingly won first place. The consensus by rank was in second. ESPN came third, and then came Ultimate Pool Preview, followed by Ultimate Pool Preview Experts. So how can we declare that Hockey Center Ice was the clear-cut best guide when overall they had the 4th most victories from all their battle scenarios? The answer is that they won the final battle by more than 7,000 wins. In regards to Ultimate Pool Preview and Ultimate Pool Preview Experts, our hypothesis is that their lists were similar and they undercut each other, thus putting them into 4th and 5th place. The semi-finalists were only in 2 battles, and there could be an argument for Steve Laidlaw. They had a bad matchup in their semi-finals, but that's what happens in real life, isn't it? What is shown here are the first half of the qualifiers that did not make the semi-finals. McCain's Hockey and Yahoo being the strongest of this bunch. Here are the remaining lists that did not go beyond the qualifying rounds. In this slide, we are looking at the 5 lists that were excluded from the battles. My version of Don Lucian's list was incomplete. Apple's Hockey, Eric Duhatschek, and NHL Trade Rumors had too few predictions. Datsuk to Zetterberg was a last-minute entry that supplied an unexpected 2 lists, one based on their Marcel's calculation and a personal list. I chose to include their Marcel's list because that's what they were focused on, but maybe I should have also included their personal list. I apologize to them for this decision. Returning back to ESPN's results, it challenges an assumption we all make, which I will explain over the next set of slides. Let's set this up with a rather famous quote by Benjamin Franklin. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We should all know what he's getting at. Next is another famous American, Mark Twain, and he said, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." You might have seen this at the beginning of the movie The Big Short. Which leads me to the myth that pools are won in the late rounds. I have gone through countless newspaper articles, guides, websites that make mention of this statement in some form, and it's not to try to sell you their list. In some cases, they give you their list freely, but what they're trying to do, even indirectly, is emphasize their expertise when it comes to finding hidden gems, or as we know, sleepers. It sounds right, it looks right, but it's not right. I propose something that may sound similar, but it's certainly not the same. Pools are lost in the earliest rounds. The earliest rounds are where the big points are, and when we make mistakes, it costs us dearly. Benjamin Franklin would agree. The assumption made in the myth is that after a few draft rounds, everyone comes out about even. Why? Because everyone knows the big names from each team and they are easy to pick in the correct order. But would Mark Twain say this is true? In this table, I illustrate the various point ranges by the ranks and how much of a difference would be had in a perfect world. 5% of all the points scored in the 2019-20 season were earned by the top 10 players. 6% came from the 15 next best players, 9% from the 25 next best, and so on. When you look at the 101 to 150 range, there is 12% of the total points, but that is over the span of 50 players, not 10 as is the case of the first grouping. Now look at this graph of the average missed opportunity over those ranges. 14.6% of the points are missed in the top 10. 21% of the possible points earned by the top 100 players were missed by the guides. This is huge. That is not what the myth leads us to believe. If a guide and then we get it right early, we won't need to worry about late round selections. We would be so far ahead of our competition. I will show this to you in another way. The predicted top 10 players of every guide were evaluated. First, if they just landed in the actual top 10 of the NHL, and then to see if the guide ranked them exactly in the right spot. The red-filled cells shows us the Battle of the Hockey Pool Guide finalists. The average was 60% of the predictions made the NHL's top 10, but only 5% were ranked perfectly. These are huge missed opportunities by every guide. That is why ESPN is not only able to make the finals in the Battle of the Hockey Pool Guides, but also able to earn third place. Here's where you're saying to yourself, but I didn't evaluate the point projections. That would show you the accuracy of the best guides. So here you go. I took 8 of the top 10 guides shown from best to worst of their point projections as deemed by the website fantasyref.com and ran them through a battle of their own. I don't have a complete list for Don Lucizen, and I don't have a list for Cam Robinson. And which guide was the best? The one that was ranked 7th. LePoule would have won more than 40% of the time. I went one step further along. I did the same thing, but this time I used 8 of the top 10 guides based on Fantasy Ref's rank calculations. That meant the Hockey News was kicked out, and Keeping Karlsson Elan entered the battle, and guess what? The results changed dramatically. The 8th best list, LePoule, still was the leader of the pack, but this time they only won 28% of the time. The standings are tighter. Scott Cullen dramatically improved to 2nd. Steve Layla hung around for 3rd. Hockey the Magazine and McKeen's held their own. Elan from Keeping Karlsson had a respectable showing, but Elan was rated as the 13th best guide by point predictions. The final thing to note is that Fantasy Ref and my ratings by rank show that the mistakes made in the early rounds causes much turmoil and gives lesser accurate guides an opportunity to win. The accuracy of the point projections was not that useful, and it's because it's not measuring accuracy, it's measuring precision. Are they not the same thing? The answer is no. When one measures point projections, ignoring the rank, then you are measuring precision. Imagine a dartboard. You don't care if the dart hits a bullseye for getting the right rank. You are measuring how closely the darts are landing in relation to each other. When you measure for projected ranks, you ignore the point projection and focus how close to the bullseye the prediction was. Going back to an earlier slide, the measurement of how many players made the top 10 was the precision, and how many were perfectly ranked was the accuracy. All the prognosticators have a lot of work to do to improve their accuracy. The accuracy of these guides is not the sole factor. As I figure it, there are 8 factors that influence your chances of winning a hockey pool. The first factor is the number of poolers in a pool. Many believe that the more poolers means the odds will be more even, but that's not necessarily true. More poolers means there will be more opportunity for mistakes to be made. Our Battle of the Hockey Pool guides is fixed to having 8 poolers compete at a time. This is why I've introduced the various comités, which change the number of participants. Factor 2 is the number of draft rounds. We saw evidence of this over our various battles. It was a very rare circumstance when one guide prevailed over all the others through all the draft lengths. Having more rounds does not even the odds, but like the first factor, it only provides more occasions for mistakes to be made. How does your pool determine the order of selection? Most pools put names in a hat and then draw for first pick, and then second, and so on. The person at the end is left with last pick. But think of the odds. To simplify this, let's assume that we have 4 participants. Obtaining first pick is a 1 in 4 chance, or 25%. Second is a 1 in 12 chance, which is roughly 8%. Third and fourth are 1 in 24, which is roughly 4%. Shouldn't it be more difficult to obtain the first pick than it is the last pick? The order of selection should be done starting with last pick and ending with first. With regards to the Battle of the Hockey Pool guides, I have every guide pick at every position, but for the comités, I performed this process exactly. The fourth factor is where you wind up being situated within the draft order. If you are within the first third of poolers selecting, your odds of winning are much better than if you were sitting in the bottom 2/3. Our Battle of the Hockey Pool guides takes care of this and simulates each guide picking in each spot. The comités, however, are done through a randomly selected order. The strength of the competition is the next factor. Are there any weak or inexperienced participants? If there are, where are they drafting relative to you? Because you want to be able to take advantage of any mistakes before someone else does. The converse is, if you are sandwiched between strong, experienced poolers, it will be harder to find opportunities to vastly improve over them. When we perform the Battle of the Hockey Pool guides, we hope that the competition grows tougher as guides move from the qualifiers to the semis and hopefully ending in the finals. We saw this next factor in play when the Ultimate Pool Preview was up against the Ultimate Pool Preview experts in the finals. If there are others following the same sources which you are using, then you will be fighting each other, probably undercutting one another. When is the draft? How close to opening night is it? Usually people want to know which players made the opening rosters, were sent back to the juniors or minors, or if there were injuries coming out of the preseason. But the closer the draft is to the start of the season, the more likely other poolers will have that same information. The further away the draft is, the more opportunity for selection errors exist. For our evaluation purposes, we say all of our testing is being performed on opening night. The eighth and final factor is your own research. These lists and guides are exactly that, guides. You have to make them your own. Make adjustments and don't let others know how you are thinking. This brings me to another point. These guides, especially the older ones, used to throw in a disclaimer to protect themselves from any liability if someone should lose a lot of money. It is a good reminder which every financial advisor gives to their clients before they invest their hard-earned money. No matter what was achieved before, there are no guarantees that the same outcomes will occur again in the future. So which guide was the closest to perfection? You might look at the results based on how long your draft is. Steve Laidlaw had the lowest missed opportunities score for the top 100 players. The Ultimate Pool Preview was best for the top 200. They were again the leaders at the top 300 mark. The Ultimate Pool Preview continued their streak into the top 400. Dobber Hockey outdid everyone for the top 500 players. And ultimately, the Ultimate Pool Preview was the guide closest to perfection for all players. We will end our analysis and evaluations with that today, but stay tuned for more. Good luck in your pools, and please stay safe.